so this is the first WormLab tutorial, first online WormLab. I've just learned how to do this. It took me about an hour. Really kind of sucked. So I hope you appreciate the effort. Okay, so what we have here is a situation where you guys have, I've set it up here, you've got 4 treatments and 3 replicates. So 4 treatments might be something like you've got your control group, you've got your glyphosate group, you've got your Roundup Ready to Use 3 group, and you've got your Roundup Super Concentrate group. 3 replicates means that you've got 3 controls, 3 Roundup Ready to Use, 3 Roundup Super Concentrates, and 3 glyphosates. Okay, so that means you have a total of 12 tanks. And you've already got a situation where somebody, you guys, have weighed 513 worms. You have them sitting in petri dishes on the table. They've got the number with a Sharpie on top of them. So worm number 1 weighs 0.05, worm number 2 weighs 0.07. And your job now is to make sure that each tank, and you've got 12 tanks, right? Because you got 4 treatments, 3 replicates. Each tank gets the same number of worms and gets the same biomass of worms. So a total of 4 grams in each, with similar standards. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you a slick little trick that you guys should all be doing every time you're weighing worms and putting them into tanks, where you're using Excel, which we're in right now. You can see we're in Excel, and we're using something called Stat Plus, which I told you to download. It's free. If you get really slick with it, you can use it more, and it's like less than $100. And okay, this is what we're going to do. So the first thing that we want to do is sort the worms, and we want to sort them from smallest to largest. So Excel has the 2 ways to sort. You can use sort and filter, or you can use data and sort here. Doesn't matter which you use. Let's use this one because you guys are probably using all the new software. And we're going to do a custom sort. And it says sort by, and this is a little drop down, and you're just going to sort by worm weight. Okay? Okay. All right, so now you can see that we went from worm 1, got buried in here someplace, but now the smallest worm that we have is worm 26, and it weighs 0.01. If we go all the way to the bottom, we can see that our largest worms weigh 0.09. So you guys have done this enough to know that we usually throw out, and look, there are no worms that weigh 0.08. You guys have done this enough that we know that we often throw out the smallest, largest, and smallest worms. So let's go ahead and do that now. Let's say bye to the 0.09s. Now what I've done is I've copied a blank field, and I'm just going to paste it right there. Bye-bye, heavy worms. And what that means in real life, you guys took those worms and you release them upstairs in the organic tanks so that they can breed and we can make more worms without me having to buy more and always bring them in from my basement, which is where I'm sitting now. Okay, we're also going to go ahead and we're going to get rid of these tiny worms. These 0.01s are too small. All right, so now we've got all I'm doing now is moving them. So I've copied and pasted, I've cut, and then I'm going to paste them right here. And now you can see that we've got something less than whatever we started, 514. Now we're down to 501 worms. Actually, that's probably 500 worms exactly. So we've deleted 13. So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put them in a tank. Now remember, we have 12 tanks. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. All right. Now I haven't taken the time and effort to figure out if this is going to work out slick or not. We might have too many or too few worms. We might not land exactly on 12. I'm not going to worry about it at this point. All right. So what we want to do is we want to, what we've done is, so if you look here, our smallest worms are 0.02, and each of the 12 tanks got a 0.02 worm. It got it once, it got it twice, got it 3 times, maybe it'll get it 4 or 5 times. So that's how this sorting method works. It makes sure that all the tanks get small worms, all the tanks get medium worms, all the tanks get large worms. And this method almost, that I'm showing you right here, almost always works if you have a lot of worms. Sometimes if you're only putting 4 or 5 worms in a tank, you got to be a little more careful than what we're doing right here. But oops, don't want to do that. Okay, so now all I'm doing is I'm copying and pasting 1 through 12 multiple times here so that I'm giving each worm a weight. Okay, and you can see that doing this I've overshot it. We don't have equal number of worms in each tank. We don't want that. We want equal numbers of worms. We don't want these extras right here. So we're going to get rid of these guys. And that gives us 8. You can see that this is 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Also, when I'm grabbing them, if you keep your eye right here for a minute, when I grab these, watch what happens. It says that I've got 8R, 1C. That means I've got 8 rows. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of 8 worms. 4 at the top and 4 at the bottom. Okay, so let me show you a trick here. I'm working on a Mac. I'm sure this works on a Windows machine too, but let me just... So if you hold down Shift, Command, and the down arrow, it'll take you to the very last worm. So you don't have to scroll through all 500. That was Shift, Command down, or Shift arrow down. I'm going to copy those numbers. I'm going to cut those numbers. Notice that in Excel, when you hit cut, it doesn't delete until you tell it where to go. We're going to leave 4 blanks at the top. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to paste it there. And you can see now that these worms, 1, 2, 3, oops, I didn't do enough. I'm just going to redo that. Okay, now we have 4 blank worms on the top. 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't have to grab it. So now if I just use Command down arrow, it'll take me right down to the bottom of the data. And I should have 4 blank worms here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So now, again, we're just going to delete these worms. And in real life, what that means is that somebody found those worms 103, 447, 417, and 81. And they released them upstairs into the tanks where they could have a good worm life instead of getting roasted like we're going to do to these worms. Okay, and we're going to do the same to these guys. We're going to release these guys in the tanks upstairs so we don't waste them. Waste not, want not. Okay, we're going to, what I'm doing here is I'm holding down Shift, I'm holding down Command, and I'm doing my down arrow. Got my whole data set, copy, cut, paste. Okay, and now you can see that we've got a nice, neat data set. It should go from 1 to 12. It should end on 12, which it does, which is nice. All right, so that means that at the very least, I'm going to just move this over here for a minute. You know that these worms, 311 goes into tank 1, worm 347 goes into tank 2, worm 161 goes into tank 3, etc. All right, well, that's a pain in the ass to deal with, so what we're going to do next is we're going to sort by, what do you guys think we're going to sort by? Dun, dun, dun. What are we going to sort by? What? Nobody's answering me? Okay, it's going to be tank 10. I'm sorry, we're going to sort by tank, and then we're going to add, and we're going to sort by worm number so that we can make it a little easier for us. Okay, so now you can see that these worms, let's just make sure we got everything nice. So first thing that I'm doing, I'm scrolling down. I'm making sure that we have a bunch of 1s, bunch of 2s, bunch of 3s, and we don't have any weird funky shit going on right here. Okay, this data looks good to me. I didn't mangle it. Sometimes it mangles. That's why you save. Oh, let's save. Just saved. Okay, so now all these worms go into tank 1. All right. So So tank 1 gets worms 4, 21, 25, 38, 51, etc. So how many worms are we putting in tank 1? I made a big data set to make this a little challenging for you guys. Let's see. We are putting, again, watch this corner right here. Watch where I land with that. Okay, oops. That's not so easy. How many worms are we getting? 41. Okay, so now what we have to do is we're going to use a statistic to see if our worm weights are the same. So the easiest thing to do at this point is to make a new sheet so you don't mangle your data. We're going to make a new sheet. And what we're going to do now is going to make a pile for tank 1, a pile for tank 2, pile for tank 3, all the way for 12. All right, so at this point I'm regretting that I made so many damn tanks for you guys, but nonetheless. What I've done is I've copied, I'm pasting, and I'm cutting tanks 2 through 12. I'm going to paste them there. I'm going to do the same thing. The reason that I'm doing this is because this is how you have to have the data set up to do a statistic. And even though it's annoying to do it for worm sorting, it's really good to be able to do this when you actually want to know if your glyphosate is significantly different than your control, for example. So I hope you just see, I'm just copying and pasting all day long here, boring, boring, boring. And we're going to have to do it 12 times, which is even more boring. But you can see that if you're just very methodical about it, it's going to work out fine. All right, so what I'm going to do is maybe just stop at 6 tanks right here because this is a lot of data. Okay, so our real question is, so these worms should all go into tank 2. These worms should all go into tank 3. These worms should all go into tank 4. All right, and what we really want to know are these means and standard deviations the same as these means and standard deviations? Now, maybe some of you are going, hey, you didn't put titles. Okay, we're going to do this. So this is going to be worm weight 2. This is going to be worm weight 3. This is going to be worm weight 4. This is going to be worm weight 5. And then we're just going to ignore everything else. All right, and then we're going to change this to worm weight 1. And our real question is, does worm weight 1 equal worm weight 2 equals worm weight 3, worm weight 4, worm weight 5? Now, most of the time when we do statistics, we're hoping for a significant difference. But right now, we're hoping that everything is identical. So we're going to go to Stat Plus. Okay, now pay attention to this, to the menu bar right here. I am in Excel. I'm taking my mouse down slowly down to Stat Plus. Watch the top bar. Ah, it changed. Didn't look like it changed. You could have missed it if you weren't paying attention. So we're going to go to Statistics. We're going to do Basic ANOVA, and we're going to do One-Way Unstacked. And then it's going to say, okay, what do you want to look at? We're going to look at worm weight 1, worm weight 2, worm weight 3, worm weight 4, worm weight 5. Okay. And then that's all we did. All right, so now post hoc comparisons, yep. Show descriptive statistics, yep. Okay, I'm going to click OK. Okay. All right, look, it gave us data. Okay, so now we can see a couple of things. So this is worm weight 1, worm weight 2, worm weight 3, 4, 5. Each one had 41 worms in it. That's a nice big sample size. Some doesn't matter, but the means you want to pay attention to. So are they all the same? Yeah, look, 0.044, 0.045, 0.044. You can see that they all look pretty much the same. All right, you always want to start any statistic by looking at the means first. Forget the p-values or whatever you've been learning in your other classes. Just make sure. So you guys have put enough worms on a scale. You know that those weights, 0.045 to 0.044, they're pretty similar. So our p-value is right here, and our p-value is, oh my gosh, almost 1. Okay, so remember, p-value can go from almost, for very goddamn small, to really close to 1. And the closer to 1 it is, the more uniform your data is. And the smaller it gets, the more somebody's an outlier. So remember, we're trying to make groups that are identical. We want a p-value that's close to 1, and we got it. So we can be pretty sure that we sorted nicely here. All right, so you have finished the homework assignment, but don't stop here because I'm going to tell you a couple of things that'll make you a badass. When you're reading research papers, you will see that statistics are often reported as one-way ANOVA. They'll give you a p-level. They'll give you an f-test value, even though this doesn't say f-test right here. That's what it is. And they'll give you this df, that means degrees of freedom. Those are those two numbers there. So whenever you're writing for science for scientists, you have to report your degrees of freedom, your f-test, and your p-value. And your degrees of freedom have to do, see how you used a total of 492 worms right here? If you add 4 plus that, you will get 492. Oh no, something bizarre happened. So worm weight 5, we shouldn't have added because it was all the rest of the worms. So we had 41 worms in each of these groups, and then worm weight 5. I shouldn't have added that into the statistic, but you can see there are a whole bunch of them because it's worms 5 through 12. But the mean is really the similar, it's 0.045. So even though our sample size was really big for this one, because our means and our variances were identical, and the statistics said, yeah, you can use that as a group if you want to. Okay, that's it for this tutorial right here. So I've given you a homework assignment. You should be able to use this tutorial to complete your assignment. And thanks for coming to my tutorial.